So for 3 days, I had a patient that was in the far window bed of a double room. So in those instances when you don't have the first bed as well, it's kind of awkward. You're like, hey, coming through again for the 12th time today, sorry. And sometimes you build a good rapport with the family. You're like, watch your toes, I'm gonna chop them off if you don't move, like whatever. So I'm going to my patient in the second bed, and this is for 3 straight consecutive 12-hour shifts. And the first bed is a Spanish-speaking only gentleman, and super sweet. He's like, hello. And I'm like, hi, senor. And I keep on walking back and forth. So the nurses that were taking care of the first bed, this Spanish patient, they didn't speak Spanish, so it was, okay, yeah, oh, sign language with everything, and he's doing well with it, but then he's like, okay, and it has all these questions, so I feel bad, and it's hard to use the Blue Translator phones, and it's hard to find them on the unit sometimes. It's difficult, especially over a holiday weekend, to get in-person interpreters, so we're trying our best. And now I'm gonna say this very nicely. My Spanish is terrible. Mi español es terrible, all right? So I'm peeking around the corner, and this poor nurse is trying to explain how the Spanish patient is going to go home with Lovenox. So we're doing teaching, and I keep on kind of poking my head around the curtain that's separating the 2 beds, and I'm like, es una aguja para prevenir los coágulos de sangre. And he's like, oh, yeah, sí. So it's a needle that will help prevent blood clots, is basically what I said. And that's like basic, but he gets it, he understands. So we show him, and it's easier to demonstrate once you know what a medication is used for and what you're supposed to be doing with it. So we taught him, and he's like, yeah, sí, no preguntas. So no questions, successful teaching, great. So, I mean, this is on the 3rd day. So I've been going back and forth, and I'm like, ¿estás bien, señor? ¿Necesitas algo? Like, is there anything else you need? At one point, I helped him get things out of his closet, but I have never been his nurse. Everyone else has. I just continue with the casual conversation. So on my 3rd day with his neighbor in the second bed, first bed, Spanish patient is going home. He's being discharged. So his whole family's there, and he comes up to me. He runs up, and he's like, gives me a huge hug. I'm like, oh, señor, like, gracias. And he hands me this. And I look at it, and I was like, para mí? For me? And he goes, sí. And in Spanish, he says, because you have been so nice, and you have a big heart. So his son, as I'm standing there dumbfounded, said he couldn't stop talking about the nurse that could speak a little Spanish. And I'm like, literally, I can only speak a little Spanish. And I said in Spanish, hablo español más de lo que puedo comprender, which is, I speak more Spanish than I can comprehend. And then I usually continue that once the patient is laughing and say, me gusta sí o no respuestas. I like yes or no answers. So that's honestly the most that I did. I was never this patient's nurse, but he gave me this little purse. And I'm looking at it, and the son goes on and says, he said that you were so great whenever he needed something that he couldn't physically get his point across. You would come in, and you would help him, and sometimes it took a little bit, but you at least took the time to stay with him and figure out what he needed, and you were able to then rectify his request. And I'm like, well, I mean, I would do that for anyone. It doesn't matter. Like, I just didn't want him to not be able to communicate. And they were like, well, we want to let you know that over the past 3 days, you have made that difference. And 5 days ago, he actually came over from El Salvador, and we found that he was very sick. So this is a purse from his home country. Once he is better, he will be going back. He does not live here, but he wanted to let you know that his time in the United States has been amazing because of you. So I'm crying, of course. I'm holding it together in front. I'm like, oh, thank you, señor. Like, this is so great. Gracias por su cooperación con mi español. Like, thank you for your cooperation with my Spanish. And he's just laughing and hugging me and holding my hand. He's like, yeah, waiting for his son to translate everything. And everyone in his family then gives me hugs, and they're kissing me on both cheeks. And I'm standing there, and the poor nurse that had him that day, he's like, what did you do? And I'm like, I just tried to help with the Spanish, and I just felt so great. It's honestly just these little things that make such a big difference. Apparently, like, his family couldn't have been there the whole time, so he was saying that when they weren't there, I was helping him and being able to communicate his needs effectively to even the appropriate nurse was all that he wanted and all that he needed. And because of that, I now have a purse with a representation of my big heart from a patient from El Salvador. Hand painted. Amazing. Even the little things can make such a big difference in a patient's life, even if they aren't your patient. It's never a not my patient, not my problem. Take your time, help out your coworkers, be a team player. And if you have bilingual abilities, or if you have anything that you can do to contribute to bettering your unit, do it, because it will make a difference and it will not go unnoticed.